The holiday break for Congress is almost over, with the House and Senate both back in session on Monday. And one key issue we're expecting them to confront: the slower than mandated rollout of the Epstein files by the DOJ. Lawyers are combing through 5 million more documents left to review, according to reporting from Reuters and the New York Times. Let's bring in former federal prosecutor Ankush Khardori. Ankush, lawyers who pushed for the release are very unhappy about this. Lawmakers, I should say, are very unhappy about the slow rollout here. They've floated the idea of inherent contempt or even impeachment articles against Pam Bondi, the AG. Realistically, though, what can they do to hold the DOJ accountable and force the full release?
Look, I think their options are very limited here. I mean, they can, initiate contempt proceedings and maybe fine Pam Bondi. It's not clear to me that there is actually majority support in the Congress for that. The whole problem with this exercise was ultimately going to be up to the Justice Department and the Trump administration to decide how they handled this. And, I think there are multiple reasons why, we're here where we are. One reason is that Congress crafted and passed a very broad and indiscriminate law. And I've seen at least one member suggest that if you criticize the breadth of the law that they passed, you're somehow on the side of sex traffickers or protecting Epstein. And I find the suggestion absurd and frankly outrageous. There were many options between doing nothing and dumping millions of pages of documents into the public domain so the whole world could have them. They could have produced a much more targeted law, calling just for the internal DOJ, FBI memos, interview summaries and summaries of evidence. So that's one problem we have here. A bigger problem is that the DOJ was clearly caught flat-footed and not prepared to do this as they should have been. And the far biggest and most important element here is that this is all downstream of Trump's relationship with Epstein and the administration's really bungling of this whole issue since the inauguration.
You bring up really interesting points there. Should we be expecting to have hearings on the Hill on this, and who would we expect to testify?
Yeah, no, I do expect some hearings. I mean, look, Pam Bondi may be testifying in the new year. Kash Patel may be testifying in the new year. These are totally appropriate questions to be asking them. I think one big question is, last year, the DOJ and FBI issued a joint memo, unsigned memo, saying that they had reviewed the investigation and they concluded there was nothing left to be done. Now, that memo is what spurred a firestorm here. But how is it that they crafted that memo if they did not even know how many millions of pages of documents that they had? So they're going to have to reconcile that at some point. And I expect Congress to press them on that at some point.
Yeah, there's something incongruous here. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche says that the department is now working around the clock and recruiting extra lawyers even to try to help with this review. Now we're hearing there's another 5 million documents they're combing through as well. How long could this take? Should it take for the DOJ to process all of these documents? And as you alluded to, they maybe can't or shouldn't just dump everything out in the public domain without making sure it's fully vetted.
Well, absolutely. They need to protect at a minimum the victims. But look, they're complying with the law very belatedly. The fact that they weren't prepared for this is a violation of the law. In terms of how quickly this is going to happen, I mean, I really think it's important to press upon the public. This is incredibly unusual. According to reporting, the DOJ now has diverted hundreds of prosecutors from the national security and criminal divisions to work on this. I cannot even begin to tell you that is countless criminal investigations that are going to be delayed and upheld and interfered with as a result of this. Everybody can decide for themselves whether that's an appropriate balance, but there is going to be that cost. The DOJ has said they're planning to get this done by January 20th. I'm very skeptical that they will hit that deadline. Of course, they've already missed the most important deadline, and they don't seem to have their arms around this project. So I don't think this is going to be over on January 20th.
Ankush Khardori, I really hope we can continue this conversation soon. I had so many questions I wanted to ask you, but we're out of time. Thank you so much.